In the deep dark, the Aslan are moving, but there is a darker power. There is something behind the claw.
Welcome to episode 3 of Behind the Claw, where I get to waffle on about my favourite role-playing game, Classic Traveller. Since the last episode, an email has come flooding in. Jake sent me a message making some very cool suggestions about things I could do with this show, including suggesting a segment for listener questions. I think that's a good idea. If you've got questions about possibly the background or the rules or anything at all, please do send them in and I'll try and answer them on the show. Jake also mentioned the Story Seed segment, which, of course, could cover a whole bunch of different campaign types. So I'll take care of that in future episodes, not this one because I'd already scripted it when I saw the email. So, talking of campaign types, what sort of things can you do within Traveller? Well, the answer to that is pretty much anything. For a start, you could be simple traders, moving between planets in a single system or between different systems, buying and selling cargo, trying to make the next payment on your ship. I'd like to make a recommendation at this point for something you might want to listen to. If you go to audiobook.com, that's P-O-D-I-O books.com, there's a series of free audiobooks there called The Trader's Tales. These are all written and narrated by Nathan Lowell, and they're very good books. Not specifically Traveller related, but they are science fiction. They follow the career of a single man as he makes a life for himself trading between the stars, and I give it my personal recommendation. Another campaign type you might want to try is scouting. That is, investigative troubleshooting, if you like, working for the Scout Service, going to new planets, investigating new unexplored areas of space. You might also want to try a mercenary company. That is, you have characters that are part of or indeed run a mercenary company. You could, of course, also go to the Navy Patrol. A simple Navy Patrol campaign might have you protecting a particular system against pirates, or patrolling against enemy incursions. Are those nasty aliens attacking? On top of these, there's any number of general sort of topics you could have for your campaign. You could be colonists setting up on a new world. You could be space station staff who are struggling to keep the space station running against all kinds of troubles. You could be asteroid miners, working out amongst all the big rocks, trying to make a living. Or indeed you could even be sports stars going on tour between the planets. And of course, criminal investigation gives you an endless realm of possibility. Or the other way round, you could be criminal enforcers. Indeed, you could even be science fiction heroes. You could be scientists who go out and solve the universe's problems. Anything's possible with Classic Traveller. If you've got your own idea for a specific theme for a campaign, then please do send it in to me and we can share it on the show. So if you have any ideas for those, or if you have questions or suggestions, please email them to me at behindtheclaw@outlook.com. I have no idea, so computer, what can you tell me about this place? This is the My Galaxy segment of the show, where I tell you about one of the systems in the Tercesso subsector which I'm slowly building up. The planetary system of Oruse features the main planet, Oruse itself, which is a medium-sized world. Its atmosphere is breathable, if a little thin. Anyone feeling their age is advised to wear an oxygen mask. The majority of the world is covered in liquid water, and the land mass is largely temperate and covered in jungles. The world is currently under a restricted travel order, and landing is strictly forbidden. There is no starport on Oruse, but there is a gas giant which could be skimmed for unrefined fuel. As I said, the system is restricted for access, and the reason for that is scientific. A barbaric, non-human native race of possibly intelligent beings inhabit this world. There is a single Imperial scientific base on the planet. It's small, a camouflaged place, and only has 20 personnel who are currently studying the natives without having any interaction with them. Imperial zoological reports that originate from the original scouting of this planet include details of some awesome aquatic megafauna. One of the creatures was noticed to beach itself and then, using tendrils or tentacles, reach out and harvest any living creatures within reach. It would then return back to the water. The original scout report suggests that anybody settling on this planet should avoid the edge of the water. Strangely enough, the Imperial Scientific Base have not reported any interactions with these kinds of creatures, and in fact, they've seen nothing as large as that reported by the scouts.
No way. The way I heard it is that he was shipping arms, guns, taking them straight in, under the Navi's nose.
It's time for another story seed. In this case, the PCs are hired by a large mega-corporation to investigate a particular space station. The station concerned is actually owned by the corporation, and it does what they classify as secret research for them. However, it's been quiet for far too long. The last supply ship that went out there never came back. The PCs are being asked to go out there, find and return the people, bring back the digital research if possible, or to bring back a report from the crew if they're still there. This station is out in the deep dark between systems. There's no refueling facility available when you go there, so your ship will have to be able to jump there and then jump back. As this is an investigative and possibly a rescue mission, the PC should go shopping on the corporate dime and buy some supplies to take out just in case the people there are in need. After all, the last resupply ship never came back. When the PCs arrive at the location of the station, they'll see that it appears to be dead, all power shut down. All the shuttles and escape pods are still in place on it. However, there is severe damage from impact of some sort at one end of the station. There is no sign of the missing supply ship. There are survivors on the station. They've got themselves holed up in the end of the station that isn't damaged. When the PCs make contact with these survivors, they'll report that something attacked the supply ship when it came in. That ship went out of control, apparently, and then crashed into the station, doing the damage that the PCs have observed. The something that did the shooting is still out there. It hasn't attacked the station, they don't know what it is, they don't know why it's there, but it is still out there. They, in fact, only spotted it a couple of hours before the supply ship turned up, and so they were looking out the windows when the attack took place. Obviously, the something, whatever it is that's out there, is going to be a point of interest that the PCs can investigate, and you can roll that up into anything you want it to be. But there's also a lot of possible engineering work that could be done. Not only does the station have to be searched, but probably that damage needs to be repaired, the power systems brought back online. There's a lot of work that can be done here, and they can make some serious friends amongst the scientific community.
No, sir, you may not dock here.
What the hell? I just made 3 jumps to get here.
Without Permit 7C, you may not dock. Now move out to the holding line at 6,000 kilometres.
It can sometimes be a bit of a shock for players new to Classic Traveller that when they go to roll up their character, they end up having only half a term, and then they come out with just 1 skill. So rather than having a long list of various skills at different levels, let's imagine they've created their first character, which is 6 stats and VacSuit 1. That seems rather disappointing to players coming from the D&D world. But VacSuit 1 actually has a lot of meaning and a lot of uses. So let's look at it. So this description comes straight from the core book. VacSuit. The individual has been trained and has experience in the use of the standard vacuum suit, spacesuit, including armoured battle dress and suits for use on various planetary surfaces in the presence of exotic, corrosive, or insidious atmospheres. That's quite an expansive description. It suggests that the character may well have had some background in specialist atmospheres, possibly even in combat armour. So having VacSuit 1 indicates that you're not just an ordinary spacer who happens to have the ability to put on a spacesuit. You're something special? Perhaps you got that experience in combat armour, working as a technician on grav tanks, perhaps on an alien world. Perhaps you were a researcher on an unlivable planet, or maybe a handyman looking after domes on some moon somewhere. There's a lot of story potential behind that one skill, and it does seem to suggest that you should also, because of the technology level, have weapon 0 as well, so your character isn't useless at using weapons. But if you look a bit further into the description of vac-suit, it says anybody who is wearing a vac-suit and finds themselves in a dangerous situation needs to roll 10 plus in order to get out of the way. So if something's moving towards them, if they need to duck out of sight, you're talking 10 plus to do that in a vacuum suit. However, if you've got vac-suit 1, that gives you a +4 to that roll, meaning your familiarity with the vac-suit makes you much better at dodging and avoiding dangerous situations. And let's suppose you need to go outside your ship to fix an aerial or something. Doing any kind of repair in a vac-suit requires 7 plus on a die roll. Each level of vac-suit you happen to have would give you +2 to that die roll, making it significantly easier. However, if you have no vac-suit skill, you don't have any skill relating to putting on that vac-suit, you're at -4. Consider that. No skill, and you're in trouble at doing the most basic thing. Therefore, vac-suit is a vital skill if you're going off-planet. And bear this in mind as well, battle dress and combat armour can only be used if you have this skill. This was a nasty surprise to me in my current Traveller campaign. I'd forgotten this completely, and that anybody was able to wear combat armour. Better not do that again. Now, the starter edition of Traveller, on page 16, suggests that a ref may give certain people vac-suit 0, which allows people to avoid the penalties at least. It means you've got some basic familiarity but no actual skill. But again, combat armour and battle dress need vac-suit 1, according to the starter edition on page 28. If a character gets caught in an explosive decompression situation, the starter edition once again has some rules for that. You need to roll your dex or higher to get into a vac-suit in time, and if you have a vac-suit skill, you multiply that by 2 and use it as a DM. Now that's quite interesting, but it's also rather odd. Odd that the more naturally clumsy characters find it easier to get into a vac-suit. A clumsy PC with a high vac-suit would just slip into a suit, but somebody who's highly dexterous but without any skill would struggle, or somebody who is dexterous but with only one skill would find it more difficult than somebody who's clumsy with the same level of skill. I do wonder if that's a typo. Moving on a bit. If you look in the High Guard rules, firing weapons with recoil in 0G is problematic. It can send you tumbling around. You need to roll 10 plus to avoid that recoil effect, and amongst various other DMs, vac-suit ×2 gives you a positive bonus. So to summarise, vac-suit may seem like a rather dump stat type of skill, but it's actually vitally important for your modern spacer, or anybody who's getting themselves into combat armour. So if you do end up with a situation where a player is a bit put out to find they have vac-suit 1 and nothing else, tell them all these little facts and just how useful vac-suit can be. And then, of course, as a referee, you need to make sure that skill can shine to its best.
Ah, damn piece of junk! Who bought this anyway? No, don't you dare say it was me.
It's time for another review of a classic PDF. This one is the Spinwood Marches supplement for Classic Traveller that you can buy at Drive-Thru RPG. This is the first of the classic PDFs for Traveller that I've reviewed, where it's not just a straight scan of the work. Some digital work has been done to improve it. The result is an improvement in presentation. All the pages are crisp and clear. So what's in the Spinwood Marches? It's a pre-generated sector of space, broken down into subsectors, and that's about it. But let's be more specific. The introduction repeats what I just said and gives you a guide to reading a planetary UPP, Universal Planetary Profile, and it's just straight up subsector. You get a title for each subsector, and then between 1 to 3 short paragraphs about the entire sector, which may include as much as a whole sentence about one of the planets. Then you get the planet stats, the name, size, atmosphere, etc. for the planets in the subsector, and then next is a map of that subsector presented in the standard Traveller hex map format. A note about these maps. Each subsector map indicates the adjacent subsectors, but there is no sector map, so if you want an idea of how these fit together, you're going to have to write the names on cards and sort of start arranging them puzzle fashion. Each map itself is very clear, but suffers from a lack of helpful detail added in the later products, namely the bases, the presence of gas giants. These are not indicated. X-boat routes are indicated, however. After all the subsector details, the book gives you a rehash of the rules relating to the interpretation of the stats, and the final section is an index to the planet names used throughout the sector. I've got some mixed up opinions about this, but let's start with the negatives. If this was produced today, I'd dump all over it. Who needs pre-generated subsectors when I can go to any website and click on a button and create as many as I want, especially when the map doesn't even show all of the now expected details? And as to the details for each planet, or rather the lack of them, 2 sentences does not a subsector make. To make this book really useful, it really needs to have some details for each and every planet. When you could fill books with the details and background material on a single planet, 2 sentences for an entire subsector is pretty useless. This amount of open territory does give the referee room to move and create their own details. But if you're doing that, why would you need this book, as opposed to clicking a button and generating your own subsectors? However, this subsector has been used as a location to set many of the classic Traveller adventures and other supplements. Although you can easily transpose those adventures into another subsector, or even into your own version of the Spinwood Marches, it just seems better to have the real thing, the real Spinwood, to act as your context. It's just a feeling, mind, just a confidence trick, if you like, for your GM. But to make you feel like you're doing it correctly, perhaps you'd like to have a copy of this Spinwood Marches book. So in summary, it's a nice to have, but it's not necessary.
Did you hear that? What the hell do you think it is? Is it dangerous?
And now it's time for another monster from the creature catalogue. This time we're looking at the Srer, which is a ground-nesting flying creature. A full-grown adult weighs about 2 kilograms. It's a herbivore that feeds on fruits, roots and seeds. Its homeworld is New Thalax, where the inhabitants have actually learned how to tame them and use them. New Thalax is a predominantly agricultural world, and the farmers use tame Srers to protect their herd beasts from predators. As a natural course of things, the Srer swallows small pebbles to help with its digestion. But in times of peril or when defending its nest, it adopts a dive-bombing technique and accurately excretes the pebbles at the interloper. By diligent training, often lasting for a couple of years standard, the Srer can be trained to protect a herd by dive-bombing any predators that come close. Wild Srers have been known to attack vehicles that come too close to their nests. These attacks can lead to broken windows, which can be dangerous if the vehicle is travelling at speed. Pedestrians are also warned to retreat in the face of such an attack, as it could lead to life-threatening injuries. The flesh of the Srer is human edible, although many suggest that it's probably not worth the effort. But it is noted for its toxicity to the Varga race.
Welcome, traveller, to the Galactic Audio Library.
Okay, it's time for another bit of audio that I worked up for my Traveller campaign. Last episode I played Intercept number 1, which was picked up on Oruse. Once again there's this second intercept that's picked up, and this time things seem to have taken another turn for the worse.
Imperial Research Station 1, Oruse. Out. This is Imperial Research Station 1 on Oruse, calling all stations with a request for help. I think I'm the only one left. The others are gone, all gone. I don't know what's happening. The resupply train should have been here weeks ago. There's been no message. The roads and teams were attacked. Or they've gone missing. The other patrols are dying too. Something... We need help. The base is still attacked. Something came over the walls. It hit the supply shed, killed the child. Killed your man too. I think I'm the only one left. Please, all stations, if you hear this, I need help. I'm all alone. I'm gonna hide this transmitter. Set it to the pit. Imperial Research Station 1, Oruse. Out. This is Imperial Research Station 1.
Okay, so that's it. We've reached the end game. I'd like to point out to you that after the end credits of this podcast, I'm going to play a couple of minutes from the Quarter Share audiobook that I mentioned earlier. If you think you might be interested in that science fiction story, which, as I mentioned, is available to download for free, please stay on. Carry on listening. If you have any thoughts, suggestions or questions, remember you can send them to me at behindtheclaw@outlook.com. Doodle pip. This podcast is released on an attribution non-commercial no derivatives license. Its home on the web is at behindtheclaw.blogspot.co.uk. Music by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. I'm your host, Felbrick Napoleon Herriot. Thanks for listening. Prepare for jump.
Chapter 1. Neris, 2351, August 13. Call me Ishmael. Yeah, I know, but in this case it's really my name. Ishmael Horatio Huang. My parents had an unfortunate sense of humor, but had they known what I'd wind up doing with my life, they might have picked a different name. Richard Henry Dana, perhaps. Why they picked Ishmael Horatio is a long and not terribly interesting story that begins with, my mother was an ancient lit professor, and it ends with my being saddled with these non-sequitur monikers. That story was over 18 Stanyers before the two Neris Company security people showed up at my door with long faces and low voices. Perhaps it was their expression, and perhaps it was that they were looking for me and not Mom, but I knew it wasn't good. I was pretty sure they hadn't come to drag me away. I'd never been a troublemaker, not like some of the other kids in the university enclave. They had come for me, though, to tell me she was dead. It was a sort of an unreal kind of kick-in-the-gut feeling. I knew they were telling me the truth, but I couldn't quite grasp it. Flitter crash, the tall one said. It happens. Not a lot, but enough. You know it can happen, but it always happens to somebody else. It wasn't even her flitter, but Randy's, her boyfriend. He was dead too, the short one said. They spoke to me gently, and their voices just washed past me. Nothing really seemed to stick. They finally left me alone. 18 Stanyers was old enough to live on your own on Neris. I wasn't taken to juvie hall or put into foster care or anything. That night I just kept walking from room to room. I woke up sprawled on the couch next morning, but I didn't even remember sitting down. As bad as that night had been, morning brought something worse. Lawyers. First, the plantation lawyers showed up and notified me they were suing the estate for the damages to the granapple vineyards where the flitter had crashed. "We're sorry, Mr. Huang," the lawyer said, although she didn't sound it. "Mr. Lawrence had inadequate insurance on the vehicle to cover this kind of damage. In order to protect our client's interests, we have filed liens to recover appropriate damages." I stared at her and asked, "So why are you here?" She wouldn't look me in the eye when she said, "We are in the unenviable position of placing liens against the estates of both parties involved in the crash, since there's no way to determine who'd been driving. The flitter came apart in midair, you see. The falling debris and remains damaged an estimated square kilometer of vines." That was more detail than I needed at the moment. Next, a company lawyer showed up with the eviction notice. I'll give them their due. They were very sympathetic. Mom had been, a Neris Company employee, a member of the faculty at the University of Neris, but Mom was dead, which meant I had 90 days to become employed by Neris Company or leave the planet.